it was adjourned. The case was adjourned until the 8th and 9th of November to a different court. Basically, there was too much legal argument. It was submitted at the last minute by Nick Griffin. This is a recurring feature of the cases. The judge noted this. The evidence is always submitted very late, no time to look at it, no time to consider it, and so it's been adjourned until November. Also, I have to say, Nick didn't turn up until 11 o'clock. The trial was timed to start at 10:30. I got here at 9 to get in there and get in there early. Nick didn't get there till 11 o'clock, which is another reason why there was no time to hear it today. So it's been adjourned until the 8th and 9th of November, and we'll have to wait and see what happens until then. Thank you very much.
Radio rwb.co.uk. Breaking news.
And we're back with Nick Griffin, straight from the High Courts in London. Nick, I believe we've had some sort of a development.
We have indeed, a very interesting and unforeseen one by everybody. One of the barristers acting like co-defendants found something in the White Book of Court Procedures at, I think, page 2176, if memory serves me right, saying that this case needed to be heard before a divisional court, which is a court with two judges. And there was only one judge there, so there's a court error. So they couldn't find another judge scurrying around the corridors available. They had no choice but to adjourn it, which is a court error, so the cost of this day will be borne by the court. In other words, by the taxpayer. Of course, if curves are going to be borne by the taxpayer anyway, so the taxpayer always gets it in the neck. But that's what happens today. So all that happened today, other than establishing that, was that we agreed a new timetable for the further exchange of evidence, order which is very useful. I think the bundles that we have in front of us will grow. And the only other thing of note was that it was the judge directed that my application to strike this whole thing out should be heard first on the 8th of November. They've allocated 2 days if it goes to a full hearing on the 8th and 9th. And that's really it. Obviously, I'm still in a position I can't comment on the merits of the case. I will be setting out what I regard are strong reasons to have everything scrapped. And in the alternative, I will say that that I've complied with the injunctions on us in any case, so therefore there's no possible contempt. But that's all for the 8th and 9th. And until then, we're back to the legal grindstone. It's good. I, for instance, was only served some of the Commission's final bundle of documents as I got into court this morning, and some of the other documents turned up yesterday. So really, the idea that we could have got it on properly today was always a bit of a long shot. So I'm very pleased to have got the adjournment. I don't think that Kerr were pleased, because one of the consequences of it being adjourned until the 8th and 9th of November is that the Race Relations Act, under which this action's been brought, will have fallen, and the piece under which the action was brought is not being reenacted in the Equalities Act. Now, not being an expert lawyer, I don't know what the implications of that are, but I don't think it's very comfortable to be trying to send someone to prison for a law which no longer exists.
Very interesting.
That's where we are.
So just to clarify, Our membership is still open. There's no change to our day-to-day operation. Everything is as per normal.
No changes to our day-to-day operations. This whole thing, of course, was designed to make us change our Indigenous-only rule and accept members of ethnic minorities. As you know, a number have joined the party since then.
Yes.
Not a huge number, but they're very welcome. And certainly, the ones sent in by, if there are any, sent in by Simon Woolley of Kerr and Operation Black Vote to try and disrupt the party, they wouldn't be welcome. But any who, are straightforward, bona fide, genuine patriots for Britain, well, they're welcome. And they're joining, so It's open for everyone, business as usual.
And more breaking news on radiorwb.co.uk. I'm here again with the chairman and a member of the European Parliament for the British National Party, Mr. Nick Griffin. Good afternoon, Nick.
Good afternoon, John.
Yeah, I understand that there has been some further developments since we spoke yesterday, and that you've actually now had some sort of a meeting with the Equalities Commission and their barristers.
Yes, indeed. Towards the tail end of proceedings yesterday, we were obviously in and out of court as things were getting sorted after the court mistake over the judge rather than judges. I approached Mr. Allen QC, who's their main barrister, and said, well, I gather that you've still got a problem, and I do not understand what your problem with our changes are, but we have written to you in the past, you haven't replied. Can we please have a meeting? Because we wanted a meeting right from the start of this. It didn't have to go to even the litigation at all. We said meet and talk about it. They simply refused. So anyway, this time he then went off and talked with John Wadham, who I think is the director of their legal department. He's not the big boss, of course. Trevor Phillips is the big boss. And came back and said, yes, would you like to come to my chambers this afternoon? So yesterday afternoon we went along and sat with the legal boss of Kerr and with their main barrister. And we got through some interesting points, actually.
So, I mean, that is an interesting point because, I've seen various blogs and detractors saying, why wasn't this sorted out from the start? Well, obviously you've just explained now that you'd made every attempt to do that, and then this wasn't the case that we'd somehow got ourselves into a legal mess when we could have taken another route because you'd actually tried to do that in the first place. I think it's quite an important point to get across.
Yes, indeed. We did try to talk at that stage. They wouldn't. They just went straight in. We more recently, before the contempt proceedings happened, wrote to them saying, we discussed this, we need to discuss this, and they announced, even before 14 days was up for the letter, they announced, I think it was in the Times, that one, that they were going to be bringing contempt proceedings. They didn't even reply to our letter. The reply was a contempt proceeding. Astounding stuff. But anyway, moving on from it, the interesting thing from the meeting yesterday is that really what they want to put all the constitutional business to bed isn't a huge deal. A key thing, for instance, they simply do not believe that we sent out the order to all our members in July. So we had to prove it. Or they said, you've got to prove it. So I said, well, what do you have to do to prove it? And after a bit of argy-bargy about whether they'd even tell us, they gave us a list of suggestions, which are very, very, very doable, in terms of providing the copies and affidavits. So, in other words, a sworn statement from someone working in the mailroom and from a few members who received the bulletin. And that's it. They wanted a prominent posting on our website saying, here's the revised constitution and the order and the judgment that led to it. We've got no problem with that at all. It's on our website. It has been, and it's there now. So, in fact, it's to our advantage, in terms of external politics, it's to our advantage to make it crystal clear to anyone coming onto our website that our constitution has been changed, because, of course, the media have tried to pretend that we're still what they call a racist party. Since we're not, we may as well take advantage of that. So I've got no problem at all. We'll probably do that later on today if we've got a bit of time. So we can sort that. They are still banging on about our principles. If people want to look at the Constitution on the website, it's there. And the principles in Section 3 there, where we've got, basically we're opposed to immigration and to integration. We detached that, believing in that from membership, under protest, because we think it's outrageous.
It is. Yeah.
But the people can be, any organisation can be asked to accept people who are potentially hostile to its core views. It's bizarre. Yes. But they maintain that's the law, and therefore we will obey that law. So, in fact, we've already done so in terms of detaching it from membership. but they wanted detached from being able to get on in the party as well. And pending the fact that in due course, at time and place of our choosing, I think this is something we'll take to judicial review and get it resolved one way or another. While it is plausibly the law of the land, we'll obey the law of the land, and so I'm very minded to make that change. They've accepted, here's another thing, they initially were saying I didn't have the power to change the Constitution. They now accept that I do. So the power was given to me to get us out of court and keep us out of court, and as they're saying they're going to drag us back, I think that, we're in negotiation with them now, and we're showing good faith. I think we can get that sorted, that will make it so we can't be dragged back into court, and that'll get rid of that whole issue.
So, does that include getting rid of the contempt of court side, or is that still going to be ongoing to be dealt with as a separate matter?
Well, of course, we have denied all along that we are in contempt, and they would have to prove it, and to get sequestration of my assets or whatever, or to have a real go at me or Simon or Tanya, they have to prove contempt beyond reasonable doubt. They think they can, and I would say that they can't. But no, it doesn't put that bit to bed, because you can't withdraw, a contempt application can't be withdrawn without leave of the court. So that has to go back to court in any case. But when we get there, I think it's fairly clear that there won't be the faintest shred or possibility of continuing contempt, and the terrifying sounding penalties, sequestration and so on, can only be used to enforce and get rid of contempt. So that effectively will all simply fade away when we make the other changes, apart from the fact that we still have to go back to court to deal with it. And there's a fundamental issue now here which they brought up, which has to be dealt with. There's the costs, which are very substantial. Who's going to pay them? They say, well, we've got to pay them because this is our fault. We will say, in particular my application to strike out their whole contempt proceedings is based on a number of points, and we're actually now dealing with, I would say, fundamentals of English law. They're saying that we were in contempt because we didn't deal with something which we had no notice of was a problem, and we were told of it on the afternoon of the court case. Now, it's a fundamental of English law, I believe, and we'll seek to show that no Crown agency, in fact no one, can drop on a defendant some, in effect, charge, some problem, but without giving them notice of what's coming up so they can defend themselves properly. And so we're now arguing about physical money in terms of who pays the costs, and also the fundamentals of law. Was their contempt application legitimately obtained or not? They will say it is, I will say it wasn't. So that still has to roll through the court, and that's basically unavoidable. But the important thing is that the constitutional issue, which has the potential just to otherwise roll on and on, we've got the capability now just to put that to bed forever and a day, and that's what I think we'll be able to do.
You mentioned to me before we started this interview that you'd given some skeleton arguments at the start of this case. Could you explain to our listeners what that actually means, skeleton argument?
Yes, indeed, because it's sort of bandied around the left blogs and so on and so forth. That if I submitted a skeleton argument late, well, a skeleton argument must be an inadequate argument. Logically, it's got no meat on it. But it's actually a technical legal phrase. It's the argument that all barristers or someone acting on their own behalf, in effect, as a barrister, lodge with the court on the other side, usually very shortly before the court case, which it's a summary of what they're going to say. That's all it is. And the judge actually commented on the fact, in terms of talking about the time this was going to take, commented on the fact that my skeleton argument was very detailed, which of course is a good thing, because the more detailed it is, the less waffle there is, and everyone can see what the issues are. So it was a good skeleton argument. As for that matter, was the one which was lodged on us by Kerr about 24 hours before the case. And one of the reasons that I was very happy to get this adjourned was that it gives us time to assimilate both sides, in fact, to assimilate all the latest information. I was handled this bundle of case law they'd seek to rely on yesterday as I went into court, when we were supposed to be carrying on there and then. So it's a good job we didn't. But what we have got now as a consequence, one of the fortunate consequences of this delay, is we've got a timetable set down with the judge and agreed by all of us. So everything, including the next set of skeleton arguments, will be exchanged in good time, which is certainly, I think, to my benefit still as, presumably a litigant in person. So we're sort of cooking on gas for the 8th and 9th of November, and well before then, I think we will have got rid of a whole constitutional issue altogether.